had reason to come into contact with him. He's one of those people with just a very big presence. And at first, as Ellen can tell you, at first, there's the intimidation factor. And I used to tell him all the time, it didn't matter where we were, people would always come up and talk to him. And it was just, to me, a little bit baffling. And I used to tell him, you know what? I think it's because they're trying to figure out if you're friend or foe. You're so big. And, and he'd start talking to him, and, you'd know right away that, you didn't have to worry about him. And there was always the part people maybe didn't always get is, unless you messed with him. That ex-police would kind of kick in, and he wasn't afraid to get stern when he needed to. But he was a pretty amazing guy. I feel incredibly blessed and lucky to have spent 24 years with him. He was one of the most, I met him in law school, and he was one of the most intelligent people I ever knew. He would be there in class. They would ask him to do a case. It would sometimes be a case he hadn't even read, and he'd start arguing, and somebody would whisper, "You've got to argue the other side," and he would flip on a dime and just argue the case. And his love for constitutional law was unparalleled, so much to the point that Professor Gelfand, our constitutional law professor, always would say, somewhere in the class, "Let's see what the senator from Texas has to say." He didn't call anybody else the senator from anywhere, but it was always Remmurd was the senator from Texas. And he did always have something to say. I'd just like to take a second before we do a toast, if you don't mind. He wrote a poem for me. We'd known each other and been together for, I guess, about 4 years. And we were talking, and and it's, it was someone, his dad was sick, and it's like, you got to think about these things, and I don't know what I would do if you weren't there. And so he went away and came back, in a couple of hours, and he said, "Here." And he'd written this poem for me, and he said, "No matter what happens, you'll always have this." So I'm going to try to read it. "There is a river which flows, trickles, winds, through the dark, foreboding forest of despair and lost time, just beyond the valley of what should be, but is not, what could be, what might have been, if only. Over the jagged rocks of anger, sometimes felt but not seen, like the soft, plaintive voices from a former's life's dream. Its presence is obscured by mists of uncertainty and doubt, but it passes under the bridges of warm laughter, to soften the hard-baked, parched clay of loneliness and fear. Always present, ever moving, with the silence of thieves, bringing relief from the hell that is earth like a cool Gulf breeze. This river, which survives the vanities of man, will still flow when genius and fool have turned into sand. I and my weakness, foolishness, my insanity, along with all that we perceive as great work and great folly, will disappear into the banality that is humanity. But the river which flows from somewhere beyond time cleanses and changes us as it flows over you and me, and it brings us a gift. For the river binds closely all those who love, share, and care, friends, linking them together forever with God. And as long as you are my friend, I become more than I ever deserve to be. I am immortal and holy. And it's almost like all those years ago, he knew someday he'd be writing his own eulogy. It's like the thing that was always the most important to him was friendship. And it'd be funny, we would talk sometimes about marriage, and he's like, yeah, marriages come and go, people get married, they get divorced. But he said, a true friend, he said, that's really hard to find. And he'd say, you're my best friend. And I'd like to toast a most remarkable man who had a way of touching the lives of everybody he knew. He always strove to do the right thing. He was a cop who believed in justice. He was a cop who did not believe in excessive force. He believed in reason and logic, and most people respond to that. He was a filmmaker who loved his actors, always provided a nurturing environment for him to work, and always said that whatever the words were on the page, the actors brought the magic. And they really did. So to all of you who have been involved in our lives and in his life, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you for being here. To Remmurd.